Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Rachel, and I'm so sorry my voice sounds like this. It's super early in the morning, super early as in like 10 a.m., but early for me in the summer, and I just put this getup on, got dressed to look presentable because I really wanted to make this video today. This video is something that I've been thinking about for so long, but I've just been really afraid to talk about it because I felt like I was on an island. I felt like I should not talk about it because it's not discussed as much openly, but this is my channel. I want to start this conversation because I'm just so like suffocated in wanting to have this conversation but not having anyone to talk to about it. So let's just get straight into the video. So this week's Yeonni chat is titled Asian Americans Don't Care About Black Lives Matter, and that is a no. Asian Americans do care about Black Lives Matter. That is a very generalized statement that I put there to kind of push the point of this video, which is pretty much there needs to be more awareness on the Asian Americans' position when it comes to social justice movements and when it comes to just tragedies around the world and how the world operates. And it's such a packed topic, and it's hard for me to kind of talk about everything in one video because there's just so many layers and so many elements that have to do with this phenomena of the general like silence of the Asian American community when it comes to social justice movements like the Black Lives Matter movement, or just the general like minority on minority violence and aggression and racism that exists, but it's kind of overshadowed by the white on black racism that happens in this country, in the world. I just wanted to say I'm talking about this topic and it's important to me not only because I'm a social worker and I study these things, but just as an individual. Even before I wanted to commit to social work in high school and college, I just always felt like there was this lack of conversation on this topic, and it needs to happen. Like, it's way past overdue, the need for this conversation. So a couple of examples in the past that have really raised the flag for me to really be like, what the heck is going on, that I want to share with you is first, this year in March 2017, a Korean like beauty store owner was caught on camera assaulting and putting a black woman in a chokehold because he thought that she stole something from his store. Now, granted, yes, stealing is wrong, but so what's really scary about the footage as you watch is that this Korean man puts this black woman in a chokehold. She's saying, I didn't steal it, let me go, stop it, but he has her in a chokehold on the ground. So much of the aggression from the Korean store owner I felt like was unnecessary and was stirred up simply because she was a black woman. Imagine this scenario if the black woman was indeed not a black woman but a white woman or an Asian woman or anyone else who's not black. Would the Korean store owner have gone as far as to put her in a chokehold and throw her onto the ground and keep her in this aggressive chokehold while she's saying, let go, I didn't do it? And to me, honestly, like hand on my heart, I really don't think he would have. And I'm saying that as a Korean myself. I feel like her being a black woman has led him to act in this unnecessarily aggressive manner. The second example that I have is a commercial that came out a few years ago from China. It was either last year or a few years ago, but basically it's like this commercial for this washing machine or a detergent. I'm not too sure, but it's like a laundry commercial. And there's this beautiful young Chinese woman, Asian woman, and then there's this black man who is in her home. And what does she do? Either he jumps into the laundry machine, or like she throws him, the black man, into the laundry machine and then pushes all the buttons, puts in the detergent, whatever, and then voila. Beautiful, clean, much more desirable to the Asian woman. And I really thought after this commercial, like, shit was gonna go down, because obviously there's a lot of talk about like minorities on minorities aggression and racism, and I don't know if you're Asian American or Asian yourself, whoever you are that's watching this, but as an Asian American, we always make excuses being like, oh, Asians are always kind of racist and kind of make it seem like it's not that big a deal, but this commercial really brought out to the forefront just how extreme and deep-rooted the racism is that Asians hold against other minorities, especially those who are Black and Hispanic, because you can't like cover up what happened in that commercial. People scripted this commercial, they filmed this commercial, they put it out for the world to see, thinking this was okay. And you know what I mean? Like, it was crazy that this stirred up the internet a little bit, and then once again, no one talks about it. Or they talk about it like, oh yeah, that was pretty crazy, that was messed up. This last example that I want to share just shows how deep-rooted and how serious this issue is, and it is the 1991 shooting of Latasha Harris. Latasha was a 15-year-old girl who was shot in the head by a Korean store owner in southern LA, I believe. And I mean, the consequence of his action was that he did not go to jail. He served 400 hours of community service and was fined a $500 fine for shooting an innocent girl in the back of the head. And that just really exacerbated the tension between Asian American merchants and the African American community in southern LA at that time. That is supposedly like one of the reasons that may have led to the 1992 riots, but that's like a history lesson there. When people's lives are on the line, it's not just a commercial, it's not just a chokehold. There are 3 things that I wanted to bring light to in my video that you might not have ever heard of. That's why I'm talking about it. Or if you have, I just want to emphasize that these things exist. Is first, the thought of anti-Blackness. So anti-Blackness is essentially associating the color black or darker colors as bad, undesirable, unneeded, unnecessary, just all things negative associated with black or darker. So in opposite, lighter colors or white is associated with being desirable, with being beautiful, with being correct, I don't know, like everything positive. And that's actually a thing that exists, maybe even in your own culture, but especially in the Asian culture. That's why in Asia you can see a lot of beauty trends that tend to revolve around lightening the skin, that tend to revolve around brightening the skin, not only for like getting rid of pigmentation or whatnot, but because lighter skin is desirable. And you could say it's harmless. Oh, maybe they just want like beautiful baby-like skin. But when the fact is that lighter skin is associated with being more desirable, so in opposite, when darker skinned people are deemed less desirable, that's when you know that's a problem, and that's not just a beauty problem, it's a cultural problem. And another thing that I feel like a lot of Asians or Asian Americans emphasize when it comes to this kind of conversation is that's just our culture. That's just how Asians are. Oh, my parents are always racist. That's just how they are. I have Chinese parents, I have Korean parents, whatever. And that, I believe, is an excuse that died like 20, 30 years ago, 2-3 generations ago, because it's the same excuse that we use today, even as millennials or like the younger generations, to keep our voices silent and to kind of pretend like we're not a part of this narrative when it comes to Black violence. Yes, you need to have conversations with your parents about being not racist, and I feel like as an Asian American, let me just put that out there, just being vulnerable. When I was young and like looking into dating, I mean, I'm still young, but when I was looking into dating, a lot of what my parents and family always said was, as long as he's not Black, as long as he's not Indian, as long as he's like Asian or white. You know, like that's like something that I heard growing up, and honestly, being completely honest with you, it's not just me. I know if you're an Asian or an Asian American watching this, and if you have a significant other who is of darker skin, whether they're Indian or Black, or even like an Asian who's from like a country who have darker skin, you know your parents will associate them with being undesirable, with being, I don't know if I want to show your significant other to the rest of the family. And as unfortunate and as awful as that sounds, that's a thing that exists in Asian culture, and we just pretend like it's okay. It's not okay. That's why I'm making this video, because we can break that chain of racism that we say is our culture, you know? We can teach our kids, if you fall in love with someone, they're a decent human being, they treat you well, they make you happy, that's what should matter when it comes to who their partner is, not the color of their skin. Who cares if the rest of the family doesn't approve of them because they're Black or Hispanic or Indian or whatever, or an Asian of darker color? We should be setting that example for our kids. That's why the excuse of, oh, it's just our culture, does not work. And last but not least, this video is getting super long, I'm sorry. The model minority myth, and it is a myth, as I say. So basically, Asians, we come from this background of we always work hard, we know our place, we don't speak up, and it's kind of from like a Confucius background of being raised in that way, and that's great. Everyone must embrace their culture, but there's a certain point when you realize if your culture, if a myth about your culture is keeping you from standing up for people who face injustice, for groups of people who are constantly under the spotlight of being harassed because of who they are, that's when you kind of have to question, like, is this actually my culture, or is this a myth that I'm using as an excuse just so I can keep my hands clean and stay in line and make sure my assets aren't negatively affected? And a lot of people who don't understand, who don't want to believe that racism is still a thing in America, they tell a Black activist who is fighting for his or her rights, who is fighting for equality and for just justice when it comes to certain awful things that happen in this world, and then they point to the Asian American and say, why can't you be more like them? They're so quiet, they don't complain. Last year, when Asian Americans took to the streets to protest and protect Peter Liang, people were like super like intrigued, I think that was the word, because you don't really see groups of Asian Americans protesting, because we just don't, because we're the model minority. When the NYPD, Peter Liang shot Akai Gurley, shot him and did not do any jail time, and just like, where does that put us, the Asian Americans, when it comes to the spectrum of social justice and when it comes to the spectrum of equality for everyone? We always look at this fight against racism and bigotry as just black and white, like literally black and white. But I really feel like as an Asian American, as a part of the Asian American community, we have a role to play when it comes to social justice movements, when it comes to just protecting the rights of all people, you know, not dependent on their skin color. And we can't just sit back and pretend like we're not a part of this, you know. We're obviously a huge part of this, no matter how much the spotlight tends to be on the white on black racism and crimes in America. We are a part of this narrative. So finally, why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because let's talk about it. Like, am I the only one who's crazy here? Am I the only one who feels like this needs to be talked about? Because if I am, I don't know, maybe I am crazy, but I know that I'm not. I know there are select people in my community who I have come to talk to, and they're like, why don't we talk about these things? And I'm like, I don't know. And you try to bring up the conversation and you're met with too serious, too much. Let's just talk about, I don't know, let's just talk about Pokemon. Let's just talk about Beyonce. Let's just talk about, I don't know, what do people talk about these days? Like Game of Thrones, and all those conversations are great, no judgment. But there's different types and levels of conversations that need to be had, and I just want that kind of conversation. And I just hope that if you're watching this, whether if you're Asian American or Asian, please let me know what you think. So we need to remember to read the news, we need to remember to watch the news, we need to remember to understand, where do we come in this place, and why are we here? How did we get here? What does it mean to have this privilege of being a model minority? You know what I mean? And I completely understand, disclaimer, that I'm not a professional. I don't have a PhD in this topic. I'm just an individual who wants to learn, who is passionate, who wants justice in every sense. And I'm just putting this out there as these are my thoughts. And I'm not saying your thoughts are wrong. I'm not saying what if your thoughts don't agree with mine, that mine is superior. Obviously not. Just a conversation that I would love to have. I really hope I wasn't too like loud and flamboyant through all this. It's just, all this has been just in my system, and I'm just happy to have gotten it out there. Thank you so much for watching if you have watched this far, and make sure to like this video if you like these kinds of more social justice, real talk videos. I would love to make more, honestly. Like, this is the type of conversation that I want to put out into the universe. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. I make videos every Sunday. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!